Welcome back to a new video of Sunanda's tutorial. So in this video we will discuss about the chapter ecosystem. So this video is particularly for plus 2 second year students. Those have their board examinations. So let's start. At first, what is the definition? What is ecosystem? It is a self-sustained functional unit of nature consisting of biotic, that means all the living, and abiotic, that means non-living factors, where living organisms, that means biotic factor, interact among themselves and also with their physical environment. It is the relationship between the living organisms and the relationship of living organisms with their physical environment. Here all the living organisms, all the living entities are called as biotic factor of the environment, and all the non-living or physical factors like temperature, rainfall, then wind, all those things constitute the abiotic factor of the environment. Okay, next. Sir Arthur G. Tansley coined the term ecosystem in 1935. Next, ecosystem can be terrestrial ecosystem, can be aquatic ecosystem. Terrestrial ecosystem includes forest ecosystem, grassland ecosystem, desert ecosystem, whereas aquatic ecosystem include one is freshwater, one is marine or saltwater ecosystem. So freshwater include pond, lake and stream ecosystem, and marine or saltwater ecosystem include wetland ecosystem, estuarine ecosystem, marine ecosystem. Okay. So what are the components of ecosystem? One is biotic component, another one is abiotic components. Biotic components include all the living entities like producer, consumer, decomposer. Abiotic components are air, water, solar radiation, sunlight, temperature and soil factor, edaphic factor. Okay. Producers are mainly the green plants, which are the producer of any ecosystem. Next, consumers are herbivores, those who only eat the green plants or herbs. Next, primary carnivores, then secondary carnivores. So these are consumers. And decomposers, for example fungi, then bacteria, those decompose or help in the process of degradation. Those organisms which help in the conversion of any organic matter to the simpler substances which can easily blend with the soil. Okay. Next, structure of ecosystem. One is species composition. Next one is stratification. Species composition means all the plant species, animal species, microbial species present in an ecosystem. Next, what is stratification? It is a very important term, stratification. It means the vertical distribution of different species occupying different level in the ecosystem. Ground layer, shrub layer, understory layer, then soft canopy layer by large trees. So this is the stratification of a forest. Okay. Next, this is the stratification of a forest. Next, stratification of a deep pond or lake is like this. Next, so these are different factors of ecosystem. At first, details about biotic component. Producers are always green plants because they have chlorophyll, which help them to trap the solar energy and convert it to chemical energy of carbohydrate in the process of photosynthesis. So in any ecosystem, green plants manufacture their own food, so they are known as autotrophs. Okay, that is, auto means self, trophos means feeder. The chemical energy stored by the producers, it utilized partly by producers for their own growth and survival, and remaining is stored in the plant parts for their future use. Okay, then consumer, the animals which lack chlorophyll, so they are unable to synthesize their own food, so they depend on the producers for their nutrition or food. So they are called as, consumers are called as heterotrophs. Heteros means other and trophos means feeder. Next, the consumers can be categorized into primary consumer, which are also known as herbivores, those who feed on only plant or plant product like rabbit, deer, goat, cattle. Then secondary consumer or primary carnivore, the animals which feed on the herbivores are called as primary carnivore, for example cat, snake, fox. Tertiary consumers, which are large carnivores, feed on secondary consumer, for example wolves. Quaternary consumers or fourth order consumers or omnivores, these are the largest carnivore which feed on tertiary consumer and are not eaten up by any other animal, for example lion, tiger, also animal, okay, human being. Okay, next, decomposers. Bacteria and fungi belong to this category. They break down dead organic material and release to the environment. They release some inorganic substances, simpler substances into the environment. These simple substances are reused by producer, resulting in cyclic exchange of material between biotic component and abiotic component. So decomposers are otherwise known as saprotrophs. Okay. So then the function of ecosystem. One is productivity, next decomposition, then energy flow, next nutrient cycling. We will study them one by one. At first, what is productivity? It is the rate of production of biomass. The rate at which the biomass is produced called as productivity. What is biomass? It is the organic matter produced per unit area over a time period by plants. Generally, it's the weight, fresh weight of a plant is called biomass. What is primary productivity? Primary productivity, it is defined as the amount of biomass or organic matter produced per unit area over a time period by plant during photosynthesis. So it is the photosynthetic product called as primary productivity. So primary productivity has two aspects. One is gross primary productivity, one is net primary productivity. Gross primary productivity is the rate of production of organic matter during photosynthesis. It is measured in terms of assimilation number. That means amount of carbon dioxide fixed by a gram of chlorophyll in an hour. Next, net primary productivity is the amount of energy available in the producers after utilization of some energy for respiration. So from gross primary productivity, host or the producer or green plant utilizes some of the energy for their own respiration. So gross primary productivity minus the energy utilized in respiration is called as net primary productivity or NPP. NPP is the amount of energy available in the producer for consumption of herbivores. So from NPP we consume, herbivores consume the energy. Okay. What is secondary productivity? It is defined as the rate of assimilation and formation of new organic matter by consumer after obtaining energy from the producer or green plant. So it is also can be of two types: gross secondary productivity and net secondary productivity. Gross secondary productivity is the amount of food consumed minus ingested material. So consumer consumes some energy from the producer, then some of the energy is wasted or extracted as ingested material, as excretory product. So it varies from different consumers. Next, what is net primary productivity? It refers to the rate of resynthesized organic matter by the consumer. The average net productivity for all consumer is 10%. So it is low for herbivores and high for carnivores. Okay. Next, what is decomposition? It is the process in which complex organic matter is broken down into simpler substances, ultimately into inorganic compound which blend in the soil. So there are several steps of decomposition. One is fragmentation, breaking down of detritus material into simpler particle. Next, leaching. It is the process in which water soluble organic substances run down into the soil horizon and get precipitated as unavailable salt. Next, then catabolism. It is the enzymatic conversion of detritus material or any complex material into simpler organic compound, then into inorganic compound. Then what is humification? Humification during decomposition leads to accumulation of dark colored amorphous substance called humus. Next, what is mineralization? So all these are steps of decomposition. Mineralization is the process in which humus is degraded by certain microbes and then inorganic nutrients are released. Decomposition is largely an anaerobic process. An aerobic process, that is, it requires oxygen. So during decomposition process, oxygen is required. Presence of oxygen is required. Next, energy flow. The chemical energy of food is mainly the main source of energy required by all living organisms. This energy is transmitted to different trophic levels along the food chain. This energy flow is based on two different laws of thermodynamics. The first law, which states that energy can neither be created nor be destroyed, it can only change from one form to another. And the second law, which states that energy is transferred, more and more of it is wasted. Okay, next. During this process of energy flow, plants, being the producer, absorb sunlight with the help of chloroplast, actually the chlorophyll pigment, and a part of it is transformed into chemical energy in the process of photosynthesis. This energy is stored in various organic products in plant and pass on to primary consumer in the food chain, then followed by secondary consumer. When these herbivores are consumed by carnivore of first order, further degradation will occur. Finally, the tertiary consumer consume the carnivores, again energy will be degraded. Thus energy flow is unidirectional in nature, from producer to primary consumer, then from primary consumer to secondary consumer, from secondary consumer to tertiary consumer, then to omnivores. So this is the pathway and it is unidirectional. Based on the source of their nutrition or food, organisms occupy a specific place in the food chain, whether it is a primary consumer or secondary consumer, according to their nature of nutrition consumption. So this arrangement is called as trophic level. Producer belongs to the first trophic level, Herbivores belongs to second trophic level, consumer belongs to third trophic level. Next, what is standing crop? What is standing crop and what is standing state? Standing crop is defined as the biomass of living material in an ecosystem at a particular time, and standing state is defined as the amount of inorganic nutrient present in an ecosystem at a particular time, obviously. Next, what is 10% law? It is very, very important. 10% law of flow of energy in ecosystems was proposed by Raymond Lindman. This law states that only 10% of energy in a food chain out of total energy is transformed from one trophic level to another, and rest of the energy is utilized for other metabolic processes, and some are released as heat. So what is the main thing? Only 10% of energy in a food chain out of the total is transferred from one trophic level to another. Okay, what is food chain? The transfer of food energy from producer through a series of organisms from herbivore to carnivore to decomposer with repeated eating and being eaten is known as food chain. It is a chain. Type of food chain: one is grazing food chain. It begins with producer, that is the green plant, that captures solar energy through photosynthesis and feeds energy into the food chain. But one is detritus food chain. It begins with the dead organic matter and decomposers, which are otherwise known as saprotrophs, that is bacteria and fungi. Okay. Next, what is food web? So a simple food chain which is unidirectional, it is very rare in nature because each organism may obtain food from more than one trophic level. So all the food chains are interconnected with each other, and that is called as food web. Okay. What is ecological pyramid? Ecological pyramid is the graphical representation of relationship of different organisms at different trophic level, and this concept was first discovered by Charles Elton in 1927. Okay. Next, types of ecological pyramid. One is pyramid of number. In this type of ecological pyramid, number of organisms in each trophic level is considered as a level in pyramid. How many numbers of producers are present, how many numbers of herbivores are present, how many numbers of carnivores are present. So this represents pyramid of number. How many number of producers are present, how many numbers of consumers are present. Okay. Next, pyramid of number of grassland ecosystem is upright. In pond ecosystem it gradually decreases, so it is also upright. The forest ecosystem, in forest ecosystem the shape of pyramid is rhomboidal. Okay. Pyramid of biomass. A pyramid of biomass is the representation of total living organic matter or total biomass, their weight present in different trophic level. Total weight of producer, total weight of primary consumer, total weight of secondary consumer. This representation is called as pyramid of biomass. In forest ecosystem and grassland ecosystem, the pyramid of biomass is upright. The biomass continues to decrease progressively from producer to carnivore. But in pond ecosystem, the number of producers are large, but biomass is less. The amount of biomass continues to increase because in pond ecosystem the producers are algae or phytoplankton, which are very small in size, so their biomass is very less. And in primary, secondary or tertiary trophic level, large fish are present with high biomass. So in pond ecosystem the pyramid of biomass is inverted. Okay, so pyramid of energy. Next, pyramid of energy, it is always upright because the energy flow moves from bottom up to the layer of energy pyramid. Energy is higher at the bottom because in producers the energy is always high. Only 10% is transferred from producer to primary consumer. Then from primary consumer only 10% of energy is transferred to the next trophic level. So energy is always gradually reduced from each successive trophic level. So it is always upright. Then what is ecological succession? It is a very important characteristic of all community that their composition and structure is constantly changed in response to changing environmental condition. This change is orderly and sequential, parallel with changes in the physical environment. These changes leads to a community that is near equilibrium with the environment called as climax community. So this gradual and predictable, nearly predictable change in species composition of a given area is called as ecological succession. During succession, some species colonize in an area. Their population become more numerous, where populations of other species decline and even disappear. The entire sequence of communities that successively change in a given area are called as gear. Each community called as gear. Each stage is called as gear. The individual transitional communities are termed as geral stage or geral communities. According to E.P. Odum, the ecological succession is an orderly process of community change in a unit area. It is the process of changes in a species composition in an ecosystem over a time. In simple terms, it is the process of ecosystem development in nature. So there are different types of succession. Succession occurring in bare area, in a newly exposed area that was not previously occupied by any living organism is called as primary succession. It is the starting of any succession in a bare land called as primary succession. Secondary succession starts at the site that already previously built up substrate with already existing living matter. Then what is autogenic? After succession has begun, its vegetation itself causes its own replacement by new community called as autogenic succession. Then cyclic succession, this refers to repeated occurrence of certain stages of succession. Next, what is allogenic succession? When the replacement of existing community is caused by another external condition and not by the existing vegetation itself, called as allogenic succession. Then heterotrophic and autotrophic succession. Autotrophic is characterized by early and continued dominance of autotrophic organism in an succession. Heterotrophic, it is characterized by early dominance of heterotrophs such as bacteria, actinomycetes, fungi and animal. Induced succession is the activities such as overgrazing, pollution, scrapping may cause induced succession. Retrogressive succession, a return to simpler and less dense community is called as retrogressive succession. Next, general process of succession. At first, a bare land. In a bare land, whole succession or community is developed, that is called as nudation. A bare land is required. Next, invasion, that means successful entry of species and establishment. So it involves migration, that means entry of any plant species or animal species into that area. Then ekesis, it is the process of establishment. After ekesis, as a result of reproduction, individual species increase in number and they come close to each other. That process is called as aggregation. Then competition. After aggression of large number of individual of species at a limited place, there develops a competition for space and nutrition. Then reaction. It is the most important stage of succession. The mechanism of modification of environment through influence of living organism on it called as reaction. As a result of reaction, changes takes place in soil, water and light condition of the environment. Due to all this, environment is modified, becoming unsuitable for existing community, which sooner or later replaced by another community. Then stabilization. It is the final stage of development. Next one is biogeochemical cycling. It refers to the flow of chemical environment between organism and the physical environment. As an element moves through this cycle, it often forms compound with other element as a result of metabolic process in living tissue and in natural reaction in atmosphere or hydrosphere or lithosphere. So this type of nutrient cycling can be gaseous, can be sedimentary. At first, gaseous cycle. One is nitrogen cycle. It is a typical example of gaseous nutrient cycling. It occurs through both abiotic and biotic part of the earth system. The largest reservoir of nitrogen is found in atmosphere, mostly as nitrogen gas. Nitrogen gas makes up to 78% of air we breathe. Most nitrogen enters ecosystem via certain kind of bacteria in soil and plant root that convert nitrogen gas into ammonia by the process of nitrogen fixation. Okay. So it is the overall process of nitrogen fixation, how the molecular nitrogen is converted into any compound of nitrogen by certain microbes by the process of biological nitrogen fixation. It also occurs through atmospheric process like UV radiation by lightning. Okay. Then carbon cycle. Carbon is present in atmosphere, absorbed by plant by photosynthesis. These plants are then consumed by animal and carbon gets bioaccumulated into their body. These animal and plant when die, upon decomposing, carbon is again released back into the atmosphere. Some of the carbon that is not released back into atmosphere eventually becomes fossil fuel. This fossil fuel then used for man-made activity which pump more carbon into the atmosphere. Okay. So it is the carbon cycle. Next, sedimentary cycle. One of the most famous example of sedimentary cycle is phosphorus cycle. It does not include gas phase, so termed as sedimentary biogeochemical cycle. So the water, carbon, nitrogen, sulfur cycles all include at least one phase in which the element is in its gaseous state. Very little phosphorus circulates in atmosphere because at Earth's normal temperature and pressure, phosphorus and its various compounds are not gas. Okay. The largest reservoir of phosphorus is the sedimentary rock. It is in these rocks where phosphorus cycle begins. When it rains, phosphorus are removed from the rock via weathering process and distributed throughout soil and water. Then plant take off phosphate ion from the soil. Then phosphate moves from plant to animal by food chain. When herbivores eat plant, carnivores eat plant and herbivores. Plants or herbivores. The phosphate absorbed by animal tissue through consumption eventually returns to the soil through excretion of urine and feces by excretory process, as well as from final decomposition of plant and animal after their death. The same process occur within aquatic ecosystem. Phosphorus is not highly soluble and binding tightly to molecules of soil. Therefore, it mostly reaches water by traveling with runoff soil particles. Phosphates also enter water ways through fertilizers runoff, sewage seepage, and natural mineral deposits and waste from other industrial process. These phosphates tend to settle on ocean floor and lake bottom. As sediments is stirred up, phosphates may re-enter into the phosphorus cycle, but they are more commonly made available to aquatic organisms by being exposed through erosion. Water plant take up waterborne phosphate which then travel up through successive stage in aquatic food chain. Okay. So it is the overall phosphorus cycle. So with this I am concluding the whole chapter of ecosystem. So obviously it is a revision class and I have discussed all the important points only of this chapter ecosystem. So I am sure you will all get benefit from this video. So if you liked it, please hit the like button and please share with your other batchmates, and please subscribe to my channel Sunanda's Tutorial to get more important videos like this. Thank you.